Okay, thank you. Do you hear me? Yeah? Perfect. So, yes, today we'll be talking about open source a bit. And yeah, this is working on other way around. That's interesting. So, first of all, I need to say that this is a great stage. And what's most important, you're a great audience. So thank you a lot for being here with us. And yes, my name is Chris. You may know me from doing one of those things, especially photography. And yes, I have one big warning for this talk. There are opinions inside. So this is not really technical talk. This is like soft skills talk, however you want to call it. The other warning is that there is absolutely zero code inside of this talk, and that's probably first talk on this conference with absolutely 0 lines of code. So we will see how it goes. And the third warning that I forgot to put on the slide is that last time I gave this talk, it was like 55 minutes. So I had two options. Either I could cut out some of the content, or I could speak really, really fastly. Obviously, I decided to speak really, really fastly, so please keep up with me. And I have absolutely no idea how this pilot works. So yes, I have really good news for you. If you're into open source and you like open source has already won. Which means that if you're this person going around and telling everyone, hey, you should use open source is cool, you're kind of like 15 years, maybe 10 years late to the party. So please stop. And I have a couple of statistics to prove the point. 100% of Fortune 500 companies are using NPM, which is Node Package Manager, which is open source tool used to write code on open source platform, Node.js, to download open source packages. 94% of the companies are saying publicly in different surveys, in different questionnaires that they are using open source. And GitHub is just crazy. It has 20 million registered users. It has 20 million active projects. So yeah, open source has already won, and the level of adoption of open source is just crazy nowadays. So probably I've started with the positive thing, and you are now asking yourself, so why I am here, why I'm doing a talk? Like, I wouldn't do a talk if everything was fine and everything was cool. And probably if you follow me on Twitter or on Slack, whatever, you know that maybe my opinion about current state of open source, it's not so beautiful. So what's the problem? And I have a couple of quotes showing what's the problem. The more successful you are, the more you get punished with GitHub notification. This is a quote from the great blog post called What It Feels Like to Be Open Source Maintainer. I really, really recommend going on Google and binging it. Sorry, Bing, we are on F# Microsoft, we need to Bing stuff. To Bing this blog post, it's really amazing. Like, anyone doing software developer and anyone using open source software should read this blog post. Second quote. I'm at the point where I'm unable to look at my GitHub issues because I've neglected them long enough that I'm actually genuinely too anxious. Matthew Garrett. Matthew is one of the huge Linux security guys, so he's been involved in open source community for years and years, and he's really important person. And let's find some more quotes. Current status, anxious and depressed whenever I open my GitHub notification. Programming is so much fun. Trust me, programming is so much fun. This guy knows what he's talking about. And my favorite quote. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention. You can notice that all photos in my talk are from San Francisco. This means that like I've prepared a lot for this presentation. Open source is free as in puppy. Jacob Thornton. And what he means by that is that open source is really cool when you start. You know, when you get a puppy, everything is beautiful and excited. And when the puppy grows and becomes normal big dog, oh, maybe it's not so much fun anymore. And the same is with open source. My favorite my opinion about that is open source is fun as long as you have absolutely no users. If you have at least one user, then open source become painful sometimes. So why this is all happening and why the maintainers have problem with what they are doing? All those people, well, ignore this guy. All those people are pretty famous open source developers, pretty famous open source maintainers doing a lot of stuff, putting a lot of their free time, their spare time into doing something they love. And they all have this problem that they just get depressed, they get anxious, they get whatever, sad by doing open source. And I think that one huge problem nowadays we have with open source is that our vision of how open source works is just wrong. It's built on outdated foundations. And what's next slide? Our problems right now. We are using analogies that were designed to win hearts when the open source was something not really accepted publicly, not really something accepted by huge corporations. So many people are using this essay called The Cathedral and the Bazaar as a typical showcase of how open source should look like. In this essay basically says that, oh, we have those two models of building software. One is the cathedral, when there is like group of people just working closely together, and they just drop some stuff to the users. And it is also applicable to open source software. Both those types of building software are applicable to open source software. And the notion proposed by the essay is that maybe we should build software as this bazaar, in this bazaar model, like Linux, like Git, whatever, like some super popular project that will get thousands of contributors. There is this famous Linux law with enough A-balls that every bug is shallow. So there is this idea of more people coming to project, the better. But actually, there are problems with this vision. First one is that programming projects doesn't start as a communities. They just start as some random guy thinking that Visual Studio is maybe not the best idea, or maybe someone else thinking that NuGet is not best dependency management system. This happens. Most open source projects nowadays relies on one-two maintainers. There is great statistic from GitHub and from Entailing as that 93% of the NPM packages has one maintainer. And GitHub tells us that only 3% of the projects on GitHub are using this bazaar model with with lot of contributors, with multiple maintainers. Most open source projects are just one-man shows with maybe some contributions from the community, and we all rely on those projects. Also, the current state of our understanding of open source focuses way too much on code contributions. So we focus on sending pull requests, and then we complain why the maintainer is not hitting this green button. This is easy, like go to UI and click green button. That's all maintainers do, right? One half of contributors contributes only once to the project, and they account for less than 2% of commits on projects on GitHub. And yes, we undervalue work of the maintainer, but who actually maintainer is, and what is his work? It's about creating healthy community. It's about ensuring that both users, so normal users not necessarily contributing to your project, and contributors are happy. And by happy, I mean maintainer need to press the green button really quickly, like 2 hours after pull request is out. Unless, if he doesn't do that, then project is dead. Maintainers needs to think about general direction in which project moves, which is, yeah, it's not only about local code contributions, it's about moving general project in the right direction. Like, as you all probably know, like building software is just more than sending like the moving button 5 pixels to the right. Maintainers really often provide support for their projects. So in work, usually what we do is that, especially if we have publicly facing product, like some service or anything like that, we build software as a developers, and then company have 10 people doing support and answering all the calls. In case of open source software, this is also maintainers' work. And the last point is building trust, because trust is probably the most important thing in the open source that can be. So my community must trust me that I won't randomly remove all important stuff from my project, or I won't randomly change license to disallow hosting on Azure, a given library. So those are problems. And what's the future? What's the answer? And I have absolutely no idea what's the answer. There are a couple of potential answers. First of one, there is this recent movement trying to treat open source as a digital infrastructure, or maybe not trying to treat, trying to convince people that they should think about open source as a digital infrastructure. So, you know, we have bridges, we have roads, we have free health system. And we kind of pay taxes for that, but like everyone is using those things, and everyone is putting their money into this thing. So maybe that's the some way forward. There are different alternative financing models for the open source. Some really successful projects are doing VC investments, getting VC investments like Docker, whatever. Other are doing Patreon. Other are supported by some commercial companies, by some companies, and providing commercial support for the open source projects. This might be a good idea, I don't know. My third point is code is definitely not above the law, so only 30% of the projects on GitHub has actually license. So this whole GPL movement saying that you should be really strict about licensing, and you should always need to know what is your license and how it behaves. People nowadays don't really care about that. I guess most of you are using Stack Overflow. Are you? Stack Overflow? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. How many of you are actually putting the license annotation on top of every snippet that you copy from Stack Overflow? Anyone? Yeah. Well, don't tell Stack Overflow and the people that contributed that. And software development is becoming more and more fragmented, which is really interesting point, because one of the points that were brought in the 90s when the free software movement, open source movement were getting more and more popular was that people will choose one project and they will all start contributing to this one particular project. They will choose the best software out there, and they will start contributing, making this best software even better. Nowadays what we have is that everyone creates their own project, and that's fine. That's the reality we live in, so we shouldn't be angry about this reality. I guess we should accept that, and we should think about what it means for our understanding of open source in the future. Some more beautiful photos from San Francisco. And yes, my name was Chris. You can find me on Twitter or on Medium. You can drop me an email. You can find me on GitHub. I have also a company if you would like to work with me. Thank you, and have fun.